Hello, good evening and welcome to Business Life. Coming up, tax analyst Akufo-Addo justifies tax measures in the 2024 budget, insisting government needs to raise revenue.
The government needs the revenue. What then? Be a change of the name of the tax, or should a new tax be introduced? So quite clearly, at this point, if government had taken them off, perhaps they would have just introduced a new tax in a new name.
National Petroleum Authority assures all products sold in the country meet international standards following complaints of substandard petroleum products on the markets. Plus, President Akufo-Addo lays foundation for Phase 2 of Terminal 3 project at the Tema Port.
The substantial investments made in the harbor since 2017, together with the state-of-the-art equipment we see today, have tripled the port's capacity. This indicates that Ghana is poised for unprecedented trade growth.
Details of these plus many more coming your way all in a moment. Please stay. Always a joy to have you on. I am Pius Kojo-Baka. To our very first story, government introduced 8 new tax reliefs in the 2024 budget to essentially reduce the burden on businesses and consumers. They include the extension of the zero rate of value-added tax on locally manufactured African prints for 2 more years, waiving import duty on imported electric vehicles for public transportation for a period of 8 years. Now, making his presentation before Parliament, Mr. Foriata said a simplified tax return will be introduced as a means of promoting voluntary compliance as part of the modified taxation scheme for individuals in the informal sector. Now, reacting to this development, partner Tax Reporting and Strategy at PwC Ghana, Akufo-Addo explains or agrees with the tax measures, as he indicated that we are still not out of the economic challenges.
Businesses would have loved more tax reliefs, and equally consumers would have also loved more. But I see quite clearly what government is doing here. There's also a big need for the country to raise revenue. So government is finding the balance. And you argue that businesses will want more. But then the minister admitted quite clearly that, well, this is still a time to tighten our belts because we really are not out of the economic challenges that we are in. So the minister has only found a fair balance, if you ask me, around giving those reliefs.
Yeah, and there are many who are expecting the COVID-19 levy, which they say has served its purpose, and the e-levy to be removed or reviewed. Should that have been the case?
Yeah, so quite clearly, when a tax has a name that is connected to a particular event, you expect that tax to go away eventually. But then, where I said, as a tax practitioner, I can clearly see that the government needs the revenue. What would that mean then? Should it be a change of the name of the tax, or should a new tax be introduced? So quite clearly, at this point, if government had taken them off, perhaps they would have just introduced a new tax in a new name, because there's still some great need for revenue on the part of government to cover for its expenditure.
All right, so we shall be getting some reaction from Grader as well on the back of the 2024 budget, but we've got to do this story, and the Bank of Ghana says it has instituted a lot of measures to promote digitization in the banking sector and financial technology startups. The central bank maintains that some of these initiatives have gone a long way to improve payment systems in the country and supported the growth of banks in the country again. Now, First Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afare, has been speaking to NASDAQ Trade Talk with Jill Malandrino on the sidelines of the FinTech Festival in Singapore.
Bank of Ghana has done a lot since 2019. We started a lot before 2019, but I want to take it from 2019 when we worked together to introduce the Payment Systems and Services Act. This Payment Systems and Services Act allowed the Bank of Ghana to license and also regulate electronic money issuers and payment service providers. That was transformational. Prior to that, they were not officially licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. So once we were able to get that on board and we're able to then license and regulate them, then the Bank of Ghana in 2020 set up a dedicated office in the bank called the FinTech and Innovation Office. That dedicated office was then to drive the agenda for the Cashlight agenda and also to promote the digitization agenda in Ghana.
How does this align with the broader transformation goals of Ghana?
You know, since the government came into power, they decided to push or transform the economy through digitization and to promote growth. So digitization has been a key agenda for that, and the central bank has been at the center of this digitization drive. So what we've done is that since setting up having the Payment Systems and Services Act in place and setting up the FinTech office, we've put together a lot of policy initiatives that are aligned with that of the government's broader agenda. One, we've tried to bring back what we call a risk-based licensing and regulatory framework. You know, it's always difficult to strike a good balance between innovation and financial stability. So we've tried to do that to ensure that we bring proportionality to the way fintechs are regulated and licensed, to give them the flexibility to innovate, but at the same time to ensure that we do not compromise on financial stability. And we've done that, and beyond that, we've also introduced a lot of policies and guidelines.
Now, President Akufo-Addo has laid the foundation for the commencement of work for the Phase 2 of the $1.5 billion Terminal 3 project by the Petroleum Port Services Expansion project. We've got more for you in this report.
The second phase of the Port Expansion project is considered an important part of Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority's master plan of port infrastructure, which covers 270,000 square meters, utilizing 40 million high-standard pavement blocks required for heavy crane operations. This expands Terminal 3 holding capacity from 100 hectares to 127 hectares, with total completion in 2025. The terminal currently has 12 key cranes and 41 yard cranes, positioning Tema Port as an efficient port in sub-Saharan Africa, as leading global shipping lines make the port a preferred one. President Akufo-Addo underscored the importance of port infrastructure.
Through our partnership with international partners and friends of Ghana, our nation has established a world-class trade infrastructure. Not only does this infrastructure meet global standards, but it also signals to investors, both domestic and foreign, that Ghana is open for business. It is no mean achievement, as it reflects the immense potential of our nation. Indeed, The substantial investments made in the harbor since 2017, together with the state-of-the-art equipment we see today, have tripled the port's capacity. This indicates that Ghana is poised for unprecedented trade growth with our strategic location.
The expanded port has 1.4 kilometers quay with 4 deep berths equipped with container handling gantry cranes and terminal operating system, having the capacity to receive some of the world's biggest cargo ships carrying up to 18,000 containers. To ensure good turnaround time, Transport Minister Akufo-Addo says there will be expansion of road linking the port to the Accra-Tema motorway.
And I can say on authority that, Mr. President, that's your marching order. We are going through the legal regimes, and I can assure you, my information from the MD of MPS and GPHA is that they are nearing completion in terms of documentation, and I can assure you that by the first quarter of next year, you will see the construction start.
According to Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Port Services, Mohammed Samara, the acquisition of the gantry cranes worth $50 million and the project will have direct impact on the economy.
The vision that we want to see for Ghana is not to have a fancy, port with a big crane technology, but also the enabling factor for other trade and industries to be developed, around it, so it can create a job to the wider team and audience. In this facility, we have created about 3,000 jobs. Permanent, and plus during the construction we added in phase 1 5,000, and this job will add probably another 3,000 jobs, But that's not what it is. What it is if tomorrow factories start to set up in Tema Township, those factories, how many are they going to employ? And this is the key thing, the economic impact.
Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, GPHA, which is a joint partner in Meridian Port Services, says collaborative efforts amongst the partners and stakeholders will help provide efficient services. Sandra Opoku is the director of Tema Ports.
That we had to collaborate with MPS and their partners, and that is what we are seeing today. Now you saw one of the biggest vessels to come to Tema Port, and because of the width of that vessel and how big and the number of containers on it, they need gantry cranes like these. These are the state-of-the-art gantry cranes to be able to operate. And certainly GPHA, as the landlord, we are also prepared, and so we've also brought in new tugboats. You saw the tugboat pushing in the vessels. So we work hand in hand with our partners, and this is what we're seeing today.
President of Africa Global Logistics, Philippe Labon, says the project positions Ghana as a trade hub.
And since it's becoming a hub, that the largest vessel will come, they will have frequent calls in Tema, allowing the producer of Tema products, of Ghanaian products, to export all over the world and especially in Africa, to support trade and to help business grow. And therefore, it helps to create jobs.
Meanwhile, Regional Managing Director, Africa and Europe for APM Terminals, Igor van den Essen, indicated that the Tema Port Expansion project, since its inception, has created about 5,000 direct jobs. The Terminal 3 project is expected to play an important role in the African continental free trade area, with a unified market of 1.3 billion people and a combined GDP of over $3 trillion, aside employment opportunities for construction workforce and its valuable skills for the future.
We talked about the 2024 budget, and of course we've got to make some recommendations and reactions from the business groups. This time around, we have on the telephone lines the president of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, that's GREDA, Patrick Ebu-Bonfo, to speak to us on that. Thanks so much, sir, for joining me on Business Live. I know prior to the 2024 budget presentation, you were looking forward to, the policy on housing being addressed, right? So,
yes.
And now, having listened to the finance minister yesterday, None of that appeared in the budget.
None of that appeared in the budget, but, you know, we were asking for a number of things. Something appeared, but not all. You know, our expectation was, you know, there was a case expectation. We wanted more. We wanted to see something more, but, you know, we got some, and there's so much we can do.
I see. Some 8 new tax reliefs given by government, really, from where you said as grader, how does that come to you?
Yeah, the heavy reduction in the tax on commercial property is something quite, you know, welcoming, because either to our members, you know, were complaining about that high tax of 15% on commercial property. So that is a very, very welcome news. And but you know, as always, we are hoping for taxes, reduction in taxes in other areas, like, you know, building materials and all. But, you know, we got something. Yeah, so we're hoping that you know, maybe next year, maybe that will be considered for us.
And Mr. Bonfo, we do know that as we speak in the country, the cost of building materials are really high, and we're hoping that indeed the 2024 budget will address some of these issues. Now, it hasn't. So what's the way forward?
Yeah, as I was saying, we expected, you know, more than what we got. We will have to work with what we got, and then still continue the you know, the dialoguing with government to see what can be done. If not in this budget, at least in the subsequent budget in that area, so that we can ease the pressure on the cost of building. You know, so for now, we will just we only hope that in the next budget something can be done about that aspect as well.
All right. Thank you very much, President of Grader Patrick Ebobomfo, for your time here on Business Live. And this is where we pause for a breather. We'll be right back with more. Hello, welcome back to the bulletin. The National Petroleum Authority has assured that all products sold in the country meet the necessary safety and international standards. It follows complaints from some consumers about reduced performance of their vehicles as a result of fuel purchased from some retail stations. The development forced the authority to undertake some investigations on that, but in a statement, the industry regulator maintained that issues about vehicle performance cannot be linked to substandard petroleum products sold in the country. And to some other stories, managing partner of B&P Associates, Adelaide Bene-Prempe, is urging businesses that are distressed to take advantage of the insolvency framework that has recently been established to help them find mechanisms of salvaging their ventures. According to her, it is necessary for businesses and insolvency practitioners to work together to help address problems facing those businesses. She was speaking at a seminar by the Ghana Association of Restructuring and Insolvency Advisors.
For businesses facing crisis is that there is help at hand. When it comes to the work that Garia has done, it's been critical in establishing a solid insolvency framework that businesses can rely upon in times of distress, so that insofar as your business can be saved, there are mechanisms in place based on the insolvency framework that has recently been established with the efforts that Garia has put into that process. The reality is, although we now have a solid framework, it's very important that businesses, particularly businesses that need that support, are aware of it. And I think the starting point for such businesses is what we are trying to achieve here this week. because based on the legal framework that now persists, we have a new breed of professionals known as the insolvency practitioners. And what the insolvency practitioners are meant to do to champion the cause of distressed companies, to help them find mechanisms, both short-term and long-term, in salvaging their businesses. And therefore, it is absolutely critical for seminars of this nature, for insolvency practitioners to come together, to engage with other professionals, but very particularly and very importantly, to be abreast with the trends in debt restructuring and business rescue.
In more news, the United Nations Development Programme says Africa has invested in liberalizing and promoting intra-African trade. The UN agency argues that this is a prerequisite to Africa's industrial transformation. Trade amongst African countries remains significantly low, averaging below 16%. However, at the 2023 African Economic Conference, stakeholders are deliberating on the imperatives for sustainable industrial development in Africa. Blaise Suga reports.
Now, Africa remains the least industrialized continent around the world, with a low production capacity accounting for just about 2.1% of global production. The situation is further complicated by the almost non-existent intra-African trade. It's the reason for which the African Economic Conference is bringing together stakeholders from around the world to dialogue and to discuss imperatives that will be necessary for pushing the intra-African agenda. It's the reason for which a high-level delegation was present here in Addis Ababa, including the president of Ethiopia, who opened the forum officially for discussions to commence on how to push the industrialization agenda of the African continent.
With a collective dedication to advance inclusive and sustainable industrial development, and to make good use of this remarkable platform with very knowledgeable participants. This platform will allow participants to pinpoint inventive solutions, play a role in fostering equitable globalization, and cultivate meaningful partnerships.
Now is the time to invest in Africa's value addition, because it is the only way that Africa will change the status quo. Investing in these abundant raw materials and commodities that have transformed the economies of several advanced economies. And we must ensure that this value addition is also based on the regional value chains approach. This is because we need to ensure that Africa's industrialization brings along all the people, young and old alike, as well as women and men. We must also ensure that we keep all of the small and medium-sized enterprises in mind so that it is truly a democratizing process. UNDP is supporting African countries thanks to our presence in all African countries, working with governments to develop and implement policies for structural economic transformation.
Over the decades, Africa has embarked on several industrial policies and strategies and have seen some structural transformations and progress made in key sectors. And we've seen this in the growth of Africa's GDP, which has grown by 4.5% annually between the year 2000 and 2019, compared to other world averages, which was around 3.8% during that period. And even projections in the future show that Africa is the next growth pole for the world, only second in last year to Asia in terms of GDP growth. But notwithstanding all this pace in GDP growth, we have not seen industrialization and economic transformation at the same pace.
This is now reporting for Joy News, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
And before we go, the Italian ambassador to Ghana has stated that many investors from their country are exploring opportunities in Ghana's agro-processing sector. She disclosed that Italy has developed advanced technology in agribusiness that could help Ghana add value to its exports. She spoke at the 8th edition of the Italian Taste, a program designed to showcase goods produced by Italians across the world. The following report has more.
Close trade partner of Ghana for many decades, Ghana imports and exports goods from the European country.
Speaking at the 8th edition of the Italian Taste, a program designed to showcase goods produced by Italians across the world, the ambassador said Italy could add value to Ghana's agribusiness sector to boost export.
There are very strong trade relations between Ghana and Italy. The volume of bilateral trade in 2022 was over 800 million euros, which is quite a lot. In the embassy, we are, as well as the Italian Trade Agency, which is located inside the embassy, we are trying to promote partnerships between Ghanaian companies and their Italian counterparts, because the private sector is extremely important, and we have a special focus on the agribusiness sector.
And that's it for Business Live. I am Pius Kojo Baka. Thanks for your company. Bye.